Welcome to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast, your main resource for 2QB fantasy insights, smart bets, and winning props. Hosted by Fab, Nacc, and Rod.
Big domino of the offseason has come and gone. The NFL scouting combine, the Indoor Olympics have passed. The last 4 or 5 days or so had the QBs, running backs, wide receivers, O-linemen, tight ends, defensive players, all showcasing in Indianapolis. They all showed up and showed out. So we're going to take you through it. We're going to go through the combine winners and losers. And as we're recording this on a Monday evening, tomorrow, Tuesday, is a big day. It's franchise tag deadline day. So we're going to go through some of the big news that happened with regards to T. Higgins, but we're also going to preview the upcoming free agency. It's going to be a big week this week and obviously big week next week as the NFL offseason really kicks into gear. If you're on YouTube, you'll obviously notice that it's only Fab and myself. Our buddy Nacc is in a cruise. That's right. Very lucky to be in a cruise in Miami. Fab, have you ever been on a cruise?
No, and I also don't take any days off. I don't miss podcast recordings. Thanks.
I mean, you know what?
I think it's the second time now we got to pick up the slack here. You know, like we're supposed to be 3 on this, but more often than not,
it's East Coast time
over here.
Yeah, you know, it's East Coast time. You know what? No, but
It's okay. We'll pick up the slack.
But seriously, are you more of a cruise or all-inclusive guy?
I've never been on a cruise, and I've always wanted to go. So I'm actually quite jealous of Nacc right now. And he has a go-kart track on the cruise and a mini putt and just so many fun activities that probably don't even make you feel like you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, I've always wanted to be on a cruise. Always. Just like it's kind of on the bucket list a little bit.
Yeah, same. That's how I feel as well. Yeah. So Nacc, don't worry about it. You are in a much better place. Obviously, we will pick up the slack for you in this episode. So obviously, again, I mentioned combine just happened. We're gonna go through quickly our winners and losers. What changed, what did not change based off some of the happenings in the scouting combine. We'll go through the QBs, running backs, wide receivers very quickly as we got a lot to get through in this episode. Fab, who are some of your winners for the combine at the QB position this past weekend?
I think without a doubt, everyone's going to say Jackson Dart, and I don't disagree with that at all. He hit every single throw. I was watching the highlights, and he was just money on the button, every single one of them. He looks the part. He looks good. I think he's far and away QB number 3 in this draft this year. He's making a push even for QB2, depending on who you speak to, because I think Shadur Sanders is actually dropping. I don't want to jump into the losers for QBs right away, but I've been reading and hearing a lot of rumors that he's not even a first round pick anymore. And was reading
NBA Centel?
No, like legit. Like I was looking at Lance Zierlein mock draft right now. Lance Zierlein for NFL.
He's legit.
And he's legit. Like he called Jaden Daniels going number 2 last year over Drake May, and he got a lot of heat for it. And it turned out exactly like that. He has Shadur Sanders dropping all the way at the end of the first round, and the Browns are trading back into the first round to draft him.
Okay.
Like he was expected to go like number 1, number 2 overall, right? Like very much is between him and Cam Ward. And now he's not even being selected. Even PFF, they had a mock draft release right after the combine. He wasn't even in the first round. And
so I think there's a lot on Sanders. I have a more differing opinion because I feel like I watched him a lot, and I appreciate the fact that he is, he's uplifted 2 programs. He's done it with a lot of bad offensive line play, I would say. But just to go back to Jackson Dart, I fully agree with kind of your assessment on that. I watched it live too and felt that he was hitting every throw. I think for sure fully entrenched as QB3. There's some comparison to and I think what's helpful for a lot of folks who maybe are not always as locked into the draft is kind of having some comparisons to current players in the league or players who just got drafted. Saw actually a decent amount of comparison to Bo Nix. Even Daniel Jeremiah compared him to Jalen Hurts from a build standpoint, and the fact that they had to go through multiple schools, they had to kind of overcome adversity, kind of a similar type of offenses as well. But I think Dart is fully entrenched in QB3. Do you think he's done enough to get to QB2? I guess from your assessment of how you feel about Shadur, that would be a yes.
I think so. I think so just because there are a lot of QB needy teams in the first round. To be honest with you, I know Nacc's not here to talk about this, but I would not be surprised if the Steelers, I think they're picking 20th, they take Jackson Dart at that spot. Like I know they have a lot of other needs elsewhere, but obviously, best kept secret is that they also need a quarterback. They're deciding between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson every other day. And they've always been looking for that quarterback to sort of fill in Big Ben's shoes. And Jackson Dart, I feel like, can do it. And if they really want their guy, they could probably get him a little bit higher up. I think he sneaks into the first round, but I think it's more at the end of the first round. I don't think it's going to be, like if the Giants, for example, take him at 3, there's going to be riots.
Yeah, it's not happening. That's not happening. What concerns me a bit.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes ahead of Sanders just for all, even so many reports are coming out that Sanders did really not interview well. Yeah, he was only there to interview. He was only there to speak to coaching staff and speak to owners and GMs and all that stuff. And a lot of them came out and said that he didn't care for the organization. He didn't care too much about what they thought of him and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's very lukewarm right now for Shadur Sanders, whereas before it was maybe piping hot.
So I think for Sanders, since we're on that topic now, again, for me, it's he is a black QB that plays like a white QB. Like we have to but I think there's sometimes a misconception of hey, this guy is just gonna run around, this guy's gonna scramble. This guy, he's not an athlete at all. I think I wouldn't be surprised if at his pro day he runs 4.6, 4.7. He reminds me a lot of Joe Burrow, and there's been a lot of Joe Burrow coming out of LSU. And if you look at his production year over year, 4-year starter, Jackson State 2 years, Colorado 2 years, he's improved every single year. I don't think there's been a year where he doesn't throw for at least 3,800 yards, and he's been a 35 touchdown player every single year he has been in college. 50 starts. Last 2 years has played for a horrible O-line. Came to a Colorado team that won 1 game previously, and then they won 4 games the first year Dion and him were there. Then they won 9 games the year after. Again, bad O-line, tough, better conference than what he was previously, uplifts a program. So these things matter, and I'm just surprised how much flack he's taking, considering he did all this for the program, and he's a really accurate player. He's really accurate. And he doesn't have yes, Travis Hunter has been amazing. I wouldn't say he's lithered in all Americans like the way Will Howard is, or some other programs have. So I'm really surprised. True. I'm really surprised. And even from what Ian Rappaport was saying during the combine, it sounded like a lot of from his perspective, teams liked his confidence. Teams were saying that he's saying the right things. He's doing the right things to be at the combine. He's positive. Yeah. He's there for his teammates. So you said it best, Fab. It's mixed reports where some people just the people who don't like Sanders are going to trash him. And then there's another camp that's either they like Sanders or they're just flat out, they know Deion Sanders. And Deion, I feel, is the type of guy, if you start talking smack about his son, he's gonna put you out there. He's gonna put you on blast. So that's how I feel about Sanders. I feel like I watched enough of him to really appreciate his game. But not throwing. I would have preferred that he threw for sure.
Yeah, me too. But then again, you saw what it did to Will Howard and Jalen Milroe, right? It really tanked their stock a little bit.
What did you think of Howard?
I mean, he was missing so much. Every single throw that Jackson Dart was hitting, Will Howard was missing, and he was missing by a lot. He was overthrowing a lot of guys, and he just looked and I get it. Even Shadur Sanders, we're talking a lot about him right now. He came to Will Howard's defense on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter.
Give this guy a chance. He's throwing to wide receivers he's never thrown before. But you see other quarterbacks do it, and they do it well. Like I get that, you want to create that chemistry with your wide receivers, and I get that you want to be, to be able to know where they move without even knowing where they move and all that stuff. I understand that, but these guys are just they were doing out routes and go routes. Like it's just stuff that you need to hit them in stride on, that you should be at the very least. And I don't know, I found that to be a little bit disappointing, but then again, I'm sure he's going to show up at his pro day too, and he's going to do well. He's most likely going to get drafted, and I wouldn't be surprised if his stock tanks a little bit, and a guy and some team picks him, and then they hit the lottery, so to speak. They have a quarterback who can sit in the wings for a while and still produce and play well. I've been hearing a lot of comps of Jalen Milroe to Jalen Hurts, and how he's going to be going like later on in the second round. You're going to get a really good talent out of him, despite the fact that he didn't really perform that well in the combine. So, it's the combine is it's good and it's bad, right? I mean, it doesn't give you the entire picture. And I go back to the Giants last year during Hard Knocks, right? I feel like the interviews are way more important than the physical showings. And you're not going to see that on TV because those are very private moments. But I feel like those speak a lot louder than how they perform throwing to guys they've never seen before, or how they perform, running 40 yards that they're never going to have to do in their NFL career, right?
The whiteboard, like the coach that tells you, hey, like this, what do you like? What do you do 100%. When you see cover 2? What do you do when you see cover 3? What do you do in this play situation? I think the last few things I'll say is Milroe was on the deep throws, looked great. No surprise. That's where he excels. The shorter stuff is where he obviously struggled, and I would have liked to have seen more timing. Felt like he was off on the shorter patterns. Again, the combine, it's one metric, it's one viewpoint, one data point to look along with their entire year's tape. It doesn't at all mean that these guys are going to be busts, but it's still an evaluation. No. It's still important. That's why they do it, right?
It's a measuring stick, and
it's a measuring
stick. Dart,
exactly.
Guys like Jackson Dart just really cropped up their stock right now. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll go quickly for the rest of the combine stuff. I thought Kyle McCord looked good. Kyle McCord we saw at when we went to Boston College versus Syracuse. He was super accurate. Nice. Yeah, very accurate. Doesn't have the big arm. Think of it more like a Chad Pennington style, where he's going to hit all the throws, but it's going to get there. It won't get there super fast with the big arm talent. Dylan Gabriel was another loser. I felt it was really rough. Really, and I was surprised. Very surprised on that, but I still really like his talent. I think we'll hear more about Tyler Shuck, the big arm QB from Louisville, who I think we're starting to hear about him just now, but he looked strong as well from kind of an arm talent perspective on that front. And we talked about Shadur, and in Cam Ward we didn't talk about much as well, but I came away pretty impressed from the interviews I heard about Cam Ward. From the kind of Radio Row aspect of the combine, he sounds really mature. He sounds like he thinks of the QB position in a cerebral way. I don't know if you felt the same, Fab, but I really like what I heard from him.
I think the Giants are gunning for. I think the Giants are gunning for first overall for a reason, and it's not to pick Shadur. I think they're going all in for Cam Ward, and I know I think we're going to get more into this like the more we talk about the combine and the draft process in later episodes, but. Like the ranking of Cam Ward vis-a-vis the QBs of last year, I think he was around the JJ McCarthy spot. People are putting him at.
I think he deserves a bit more respect than that, honestly.
I agree. I don't think that.
Because the same thing you say about the same things we could say about Shadur in terms of uplifting multiple programs. Sure. Ward did for Washington State. He did for Miami. And like he reminds me a lot of like a Phillip Rivers a little bit with like the way he throws the sidearm with like multiple angles, multiple platforms of throwing the football. So I think from a QB perspective, that's kind of like the landscape. And then very quickly, running backs from the combine, there was a lot of talk about Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, 4.46 40, 38-inch vert. He was the second. A lot of people are considering the second running back in the class. Some are even saying he might jump up to the first. Helps that North Carolina has had a lot of good success at the running back position recently, obviously with Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter. So I think we'll have to pay attention on that. And the OSU running backs did very well at the combine, both 4.4 4.48s. Both have good size. Both did near 11-inch broad jump. And at the wide receiver position, Matthew Golden, 4.30 40 time, 5'11", 190. Texas again, man. Texas is killing it from the wide receiver perspective. Similarly to what people are saying about Hampton usurping Genty for the first running back, there was a lot of talk about Golden going above Teteroa McMillan.
Teteroa McMillan. Cam Scatterbo. He didn't participate. He was injured. I think they heard us talk a little bit. I'm kind of upset about that.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Hopefully
that doesn't help.
Too bad, but he was one of the guys I was looking to follow. Unfortunately, didn't work out that way. Hopefully he gets healthy.
Yeah. So ton of stuff about the combine. Obviously, we're going to get into draft coverage more and more as free agency comes and goes. There was a few trade rumors and actually a big trade that happened this past weekend. Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers was traded to the Commanders for a 5th round pick. Fab, what are your thoughts on this deal? You think it's a good move for the Commanders? Obviously puts a hole a little bit in the 49ers wide receiver room, but they drafted a lot of players. Obviously Ricky Pearsall recently.
Yeah,
seeing that this is going to come. Juwan Jennings.
I love this for the Commanders. I love this for Jaden Daniels. I love this for that offense. Megatron actually came out. He was on Kay Adams today. And he said that now, like, Washington have 2 wide receiver ones. I wouldn't go that far, but
oh my God,
I wouldn't go that far. But I do like this a lot for the Commanders. It came at a very, very cheap price, and this is the benefit of having a young, good rookie quarterback on a very good contract. Is that you can take swings like this. You can eat up large amounts of the cap space, and you can go for guys that might have been, pushed aside by their former team and get them on the cheap. Deebo, I know we talk about him a lot about how he was out of shape and all that stuff. He was, and he admitted to it too. I think on Twitter he said he was like 20 pounds overweight or something like that. But he played the second most amount of snaps he played in his career last year. So I don't think it's I don't think it's
because he couldn't run.
Probably, it's a conditioning issue. But you get this guy healthy. He's gonna.
I heard it was
didn't
he have pneumonia, and apparently that kind of filled up his lungs, and like that's the reason why he looks so bloated. Or
20 pounds worth of filling up lungs, because that's how the guy was overweight.
Are you fat shaming him? Are you fat?
Absolutely not. He's fat shaming himself. He said so himself that he's 20 pounds overweight. I'm just reading the guy's tweets. Jokes aside, though, I think this is a great. I think real football. This is a great move. Fantasy football, not sure yet. It's to be determined what they do in the draft and what other pieces they might bring in. I mean, Scary Terry is still the guy over there, but I think from a football standpoint, you give a gadget player like Deebo in this offense, it's going to be very exciting. I think it's a great move. Yeah.
So there was talk about Ayuk being traded. There was some trade rumors. John Lynch was asked straight up if they're shopping Brandon Ayuk. It sounded like from the sound bites he was non-committal. He didn't say a flat out, no, we're not shopping him. Do you feel like this is now a situation where there's a likelihood that Ayuk comes back? The cap hit, I believe, is 44 million, or the dead cap hit is 44 million if he gets traded. Obviously, Juwan Jennings played really well. Ricky Pearsall is on the come up. What do you think happens with Ayuk now?
If he's non-committal, I think it's because he's getting traded. They're going to have a cap issue coming up with Purdy.
Yep.
With Brock Purdy seeking out a deal, which likely going to be somewhere between 50 to 55 million, which is on par of what QBs of his caliber are making. That is market value right now. You might not like
flat
it,
out.
That's the reality of it, fortunately. And they're going to have to decide who they're going to pay, their wide receivers or their quarterbacks, right? So they got rid of Deebo Samuel, which I'm sure is going to give them some cap relief. Brandon Ayuk, I mean, there's all that fiasco that happened last season, and like Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall can fill those shoes admirably. So I
especially
think there's more
Jennings.
to this. Especially Jennings, he was good last year, man.
He was
very good last year.
And there's a bit of a redundancy. I mentioned it to you guys, but there's a bit of redundancy because Juwan Jennings plays so much X receiver, which is where Ayuk plays.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a redundancy on that front.
No, exactly. And for those points, I think it's more likely than not that he gets traded for the right price. I go back to the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes there. because Tomlin does have a thing for dysfunctional wide receivers. So I would be interesting if he and you pair him with George Pickens, obviously, for whatever quarterback is going to be playing there.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
Heart wants what the heart wants. Even the Packers. I know we're going to touch on the DK Metcalf trade a little bit, but even the Packers could really use a guy like Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, let's talk about that quickly. Another report that came out where it sounded like the Seahawks and the Packers have a deal in place for DK Metcalf going to Green Bay, but nothing imminent. I think that's a great move for the Packers. It gives them a bona fide number one receiver, which they desperately need. And trotting out,
Yes.
I just don't think they could go out trotting out Wicks and Dobbs, and Watson, who's I think is going to be out for quite a bit, as their number one receivers. It's an interesting move.
You can't get by with having half of a wide receiver every other game. Like collectively, yeah, they make up a great wide receiver one, but you don't have that individually, and you're not going to get what it's very important to have a very deep wide receiver room, but it's not. It has to be
death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, it has to be less than the sum of its parts. Like
Yeah.
Sometimes you put together a team and they're more than some of their parts. Like it's not
Yes.
the same with wide receivers. You need that alpha. None of those three is an alpha by any means. They're all very good in their own right, but they're all very good wide receiver twos. In some cases, wide receiver threes.
And even
how many drop passes Dontayvion Wicks has, right? So they need the alpha. They don't have an alpha, and if Jordan Love also needs an alpha, realistically, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that their tight end led their team in touchdowns on like half the amount of catches as the other wide receivers. Like there's an issue there. You know what I mean? So DK Metcalf would definitely solve that.
Yeah, and Jaden Reed's a perfect number 2.
Yeah, he's very good. And even Dontayvion Wicks, like he runs routes very well. He can't catch a cold, but he's a very good route runner. Just got to figure that out. But you have collectively they make a fantastic wide receiver one, but they're not collectively.
Yeah.
They're all individual people, and you can't sustain game wins like that.
Agreed. There's a ton of rumors that have happened. There's a ton of more rumors that are going to happen in the coming weeks with free agency, tag deadline again coming up on Tuesday, and then free agency, the tampering period starting next Monday, I believe. So it's gonna be a fun one. Please stick with us. Follow us all platforms at the Bush League Huddle. So now we're gonna do our free agency preview. So we have
graphics.
We have graphics. We're going to look at probably the top 5 to 8 free agents at the QB, running back, wide receiver, and tight end position. So we'll start with the QBs. I would say it's a pretty decent QB class, all considering some veterans, obviously led by Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, who will get cut very soon, Russell Wilson, who only signed a 1-year deal, Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, who also is expected to get cut, and Jameis Winston as well. So, Fab, Sam Darnold, what do you think is happening with Sam Darnold?
This is so hard for me to gauge. I think Minnesota's going to tag him, and I think they're going to try to trade him. But if they don't get any suitors, I think he's going to stay in Minnesota, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts this year and JJ McCarthy backs up. I know there's a lot of conversation, and everyone is very opinionated about how, like, you draft JJ McCarthy, he has to start, he has to play. Listen, Sam Darnold in that offense, it was a functional offense. He played very well. And he's still going to have the same pieces around him. And worst case scenario, you bench him 6 weeks in if he's really not putting up the same numbers like he did in the beginning of the year last year. And then you go ahead and you bring in JJ McCarthy in the wings. You also franchise long term. I potentially traded or potentially ends up being traded right off the bat, even without a tag.
I think it's going to Cleveland.
I don't see that happening. To be honest, I don't see any QB going to Cleveland. Maybe that's just me, but I don't see.
It's the Stefanski kind of similar offense to KOC. That's kind of what I see happening. I don't see him going back to. I think the Vikings would be petrified to tag him and just not find a suitor and then they're stuck in that situation where, well, they have no choice but to sign Darnold, especially after what happened during those last two games, Lions and against the Rams, where he got exposed.
Oh, he did.
Like there's no two ways about it. He absolutely got exposed. He couldn't let go of the football. Kind of those old Sam Darnold habits were creeping. Obviously the Rams are out of the picture now. I don't see teams that are kind of not a QB away, and mind you, the Browns aren't a QB away either. But I actually see them kind of investing more into their team to try to see if Myles Garrett can come back, because it doesn't sound like they're going to budge on trading him.
And you think Sam Darnold is that investment?
I don't, honestly. I don't, but I'm not hearing a ton of buzz about the Browns picking one of the top two QBs.
No, neither am I. No.
You're hearing the Titans, you're hearing the Giants, you're hearing the Raiders, you're hearing the Jets. The Browns.
You're not hearing the Browns. And considering the fact that their QB room is marred with massage tables and towels, like you would wonder, like, how come they're not picking up any? We gotta say, come on, we gotta.
Do they need a kicker?
To sign Justin Kicker.
Oh, that is good radio.
Get out of my head, Roger. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't been hearing a lot about the Browns to begin with from a QB standpoint either. I know there was a rumor that I found or heard that if Kirk Cousins does get cut, he will go to the Browns. We spoke about that last week.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
But apart from that, I mean, it's been very tight-lipped over there. And if they're not looking to draft a quarterback at this coming draft, yeah, I guess Sam Darnold makes sense. And he's going for what, like $45 million? He would go for.
Yeah,
40 to 45 million.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, where do the Browns have this cap space? I don't have the cap numbers in front of me right now, but they're still beholden to the cap for Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett is also under contract. So I don't think they have all that much room, to be honest with you. Actually, let me just bring it up right now real quick. But I feel like they're a little bit more cap strapped than they lead to believe. So can they even consider? Yeah, the Browns are in the negative for the cap.
Oh yeah, they're in a negative. Yeah.
So I don't see them signing Sam Darnold for this price.
There's always some cap gymnastics that could happen, but yeah, you're right. That's where maybe the Kirk Cousins does make sense, or yeah, maybe they do draft. But I find, and we'll move on from Darnold after this. I find the market on him has really thinned out, and I'm having a hard time. Really finding someone who can who could be a good fit for him. On the other hand, Aaron Rodgers,
yes,
quick hitting. Where do you see him fitting? Obviously, he's not going to go back to the Jets. The Rams is not an option anymore either.
No, I think it's either the Raiders or it's the Giants. Quite frankly, I know there's the second that the Giants found out that they were out on the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes. Apparently, it was straight to Aaron Rodgers, and that type of conversation started off like that. I'm really not opposed to it as a Giants fan. I mean, this is all contingent.
Seriously?
Honestly, no, I'm not. I'm really not. Listen, he put up 4,000 yards last year with I think 34 touchdowns and 11 INTs. Very dysfunctional. Am I going to sit here and say that the Giants are less dysfunctional than the Jets? Absolutely not. But at the same time,
you sounded like Mike Greenberg there.
Thank you. I do my best. Yeah, man, Greeny's a goat. Honestly, everyone hates on Greeny. I don't understand why.
I love Greeny. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But I think it would be more good than bad. Also, he doesn't have to go anywhere. He's already in New York as it is. He just nothing changes apart from the color of his jersey. Realistically, the offense.
He tears the other Achilles.
Yeah, that'd be. Oh my god.
So wait, are you still drafting a QB if we sign Aaron Rodgers?
1,000,000%, and I'll tell you why. If anything, if we draft a QB number 1 overall, I want Aaron Rodgers even more, and I'm gonna go on the record for saying that. Aaron Rodgers was actually very helpful for Jordan Love's development, and Aaron Rodgers went on record to say that I don't want to treat the backup quarterbacks or the development guys the way that Brett Favre treated me.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't think he would be as far as a mentor is concerned about how to play the game of football from a quarterback standpoint, you can do far worse than Aaron Rodgers. Far worse.
And I think he's at a stage in his career where he has to realize that the whole Aaron Rodgers band can't come in anymore. Like you're on your last 1 or 2 years, 2 years max.
Yeah.
So don't expect the offense to be run exactly how you want it. Don't expect for Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb and frankly even Devontae Adams to be joining you with any team you're coming in. So you've actually kind of convinced me a little bit towards that not being a bad situation for the Giants. The circus, albeit, having with all the circus, I still think the Steelers makes the most sense if they don't. So I don't think, we'll go through Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. They go perfect back to back. I don't think Russell Wilson is going back to the Steelers. I think the Raiders makes a lot of sense personally because of obviously Pete Carroll. And we talked about it, the offense that Chip Kelly runs, which is RPO heavy, which relies on a mobile quarterback, makes a lot of sense for Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And then Justin Fields, I think if the Steelers, so the way I see it is Rodgers makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. They get back into somewhat of a contention aspect, and then he gets to a wide receiver in George Pickens where I think he could work with.
Yeah.
I think he elevates that offense more than Russell Wilson or Justin Fields could.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Now, does he fit the Steeler way? Is Mike Tomlin, as much as it seems like, during games, they wink at each other. Would that be a situation that works? I don't know. But if they feel like Aaron Rodgers is not the case for them, I don't see any of the other QBs really being an option. They're not going to foot the bill on Sam Darnold. They're too cheap.
No.
Russell Wilson didn't work.
No.
Jameis Winston wouldn't work. Kirk Cousins would be an absolute disaster with offensive line that's just not as good. So I think it's either Rodgers or Fields has to come back at that point.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know why they haven't signed Fields yet. I know this new league year hasn't started and all that stuff, but I don't see why they haven't booked him into a 2-year contract with a third-year option. He was very good when he played. He was good. Like, he's not a bad quarterback at all. With the right offensive coordinator, it can really make a big difference. But the Steelers in general, though, like they're missing a wide receiver. They're going to be missing running backs in the offseason. They're a lot more of a mess than they lead on right now. And suffice it to say, they're even more of a mess than the Giants. I can say that now because Nacc isn't here.
30 minutes, and we had to get through the Steelers because we have Russell Wilson and Fields, and then we're going to talk about the running backs right after. And there's Najee Harris, that's a free agent. But we have the last two free agents, or one of these potential free agents, Kirk Cousins and Jameis Winston. You have to think Kirk Cousins is definitely going to get cut. The Browns, Browns situation. No. Yeah, no. I know there was word that the Falcons would be okay with. I just don't see that happening.
I don't think they want to cut him. I think they want to stick his ass on the bench if he's not going to be happy about it. That's the feeling that I'm getting, is that Penix is going to start. You're going to be the backup. You're going to support him, and that's it. We're not cutting you. Like, either you can pout about it or you can sit the entire year. Doesn't matter. That's the feeling that I'm getting. That's what I've been reading. Like, whether that's true or not, I don't like it either.
I don't like it either for him. I feel like do right by the guy who didn't cause a stink when when he was benched, and he's a pro. He's a pro, and I don't think it's a good situation for Penix, where if he has a bad 4 or 5 games, are there gonna be fans calling for Kirk Cousins again? Are there gonna be players that are calling for Kirk Cousins again? Naturally, you have to think it's gonna happen when there's a guy who's making that much money on the bench.
Sure. Yeah.
And then Winston, that's like kind of a wild card that could go any which way. You know what? That would be interesting. In our show notes, we have the Colts as being a QB needy team. The Colts are definitely going to go after a veteran quarterback to push and flat out. The GM Ballard has said it. I think Steichen has said it as well. They have to push for competition for Andy Richardson so he doesn't get complacent. Winston could be an interesting option. Heck, Rodgers could be an interesting option. But there's definitely going to be a veteran quarterback there that will not be Joe Flacco. And I think one that could realistically give them an opportunity to win. So we'll have to see where that lies with regards to the Colts in the QB situation. Moving on to the running backs, it's a really loaded running back class. J.K. Dobbins, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, J.K. Dobbins league winner.
J.K. Dobbins league winner, yes.
Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams. We put Elijah Mitchell in there because
he's a serviceable running back. He deserves to be there.
And he did but not just that. He had some really good, like a 1-2 good year stretch. Yeah. And even the year before or the season where they got Christian McCaffrey, a lot of people pegged him as a solid RB2. Yeah. So I think it could be interesting for him. Jalen Warren, RFA, Rico Dowdle, RFA as well. I don't see any of them moving on from their respective teams or getting an offer sheet, especially at the running back position, but still worthwhile putting there. Fab, J.K. Dobbins or Aaron Jones, who in your mind is the best free agent running back in this year's class?
I think I have to go J.K. Dobbins. I can't believe I'm saying that over Aaron Jones. It's very close, though. And the only reason why I say J.K. Dobbins is because, you saw what he can do in a year when he's healthy, right? Aaron Jones is a little bit older. Like, he was 30 last year, and I know the older running back resurgence is happening and all that stuff. I get it. And last year, Aaron Jones had a great season. Great season. If anything, I would want him to stay in Minnesota and come back. I think he worked really well in that offense. But I think J.K. Dobbins is the top free agent running back right now. I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. But respect to J.K. though. Like, honestly, like respect. You got to give the guy coming back from all those damn injuries. Should have won comeback player of the year, but he didn't. It's a different conversation for another day. And he played really well. He had some fantastic games for the Chargers. Obviously, they want to go in a different direction. That's fine. I hope he gets paid. I hope he gets a nice amount of guaranteed money. I've been hearing the rumor the Steelers could be a destination for J.K. Dobbins because I guess they're going to move on from Najee Harris, and which could be interesting for sure. It's kind of I see them similarly to Jalen Warren. I see J.K. a little bit similar to Jalen Warren, where they do a little bit more of that change of pace back. So I don't know how that's going to work, but that could be an interesting fit. What I have been hearing, which perked up my eyebrows a little bit, made me sound like, oh, this is interesting. Najee Harris to the Bears with Ben Johnson.
I saw that too.
And I was like, okay, whatever, Najee. If you look at the stats of the first 3 years between David Montgomery and Najee Harris, they're identical.
I love that.
They're identical.
Yeah.
And you saw what Ben Johnson did with David Montgomery in that offense. I'm sure he wants to replicate that to some degree. So that's going to be a very, very interesting name to keep an eye on.
I love that, Fab. Because we've talked about DeAndre Swift a lot in this podcast, where we just don't feel he fits the bill to be a number one running back. Mm-hmm. He is more someone who needs to be paired in a tandem, and I think Najee Harris is someone who better off. They have to improve the offensive line. He didn't have the best offensive line either in Pittsburgh, and obviously we know the offensive line was in Chicago. But he's a meat and potatoes type of running back, and he fits perfectly in Chicago, where Swift is going to try to bounce everything on the outside. Mm-hmm. Najee's going to hit by hook or by crook, to his detriment and to sometimes his benefit as well. He's going to go straight down the line, power eye, and not really try to be elusive with anything. So I think that's a great call. I would love that for happen. I think it's a foregone conclusion. Harris is not going to be back with Harris being back with the Steelers.
Yeah.
I think the writing is on the wall there, just to give Jalen Warren a chance also to be the number one guy.
Yeah, and plus, why pay a guy when you're going to be drafting his replacement anyways, right? I mean, the running back class is so stacked this year.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not convinced.
Quality players in day 2, day 3, right?
Yeah, but I'm not convinced J.K. Dobbins and the Chargers are completely parting ways. They have $61 million in cap space. I think that tandem worked relatively well. Their backup, they also had Gus Johnson, not Gus Johnson, my God.
Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards, thank you. Gus Edwards, who I don't think looked very good. And I felt like that tandem worked well. Like JK looked really solid. I feel like for a running oriented team with Harbaugh, he performed very well. I think the issue with JK is always, can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
So how much of a deal do you want to give him? Maybe something with incentives with regards to how much he plays. Maybe not too much money guaranteed. Maybe something more spread out. But we'll have to see on that front. I think Aaron Jones as well. I actually think I actually think both guys end up staying. I think they're both going to test the market, and I think both guys end up staying. More so Aaron Jones than J.K. Dobbins. But I really think Aaron Jones probably just tests the market and probably stays in Minnesota.
I haven't been hearing a lot of I haven't been reading a lot about Aaron Jones going anywhere. Like he rumored to the Browns, but then you go back to the whole cap situation that the Browns have right now. Like they can't really afford anybody. So yeah, I see him staying put. I feel like he fits well in the offense. I said that before. Any one of these guys that are on the board right now, you're looking to draft next year from fantasy football perspective? Apart from J.K. Dobbins, who is your man crush, which I understand completely.
Dude, I got JK in like the 15th round, man. Of course he's my man crush.
I'm not saying
he's my man crush, man. I think Chubb we'll have to see where he goes. I think I was gonna ask you actually, like Dallas and Denver. Those are two teams that desperately need running backs.
Yeah, those are both.
Mind you, Daldo was really good at the end of the year. He's an RFA. I still think they need to add another runner there just from a depth perspective. But Denver really desperately needs someone. That's where I think Genty ends up going. Dallas TBD if they end up drafting anyone. But I think Dobbins, Jones, Harris, those are all going to be kind of, from a high end RB2 to mid to low end RB2 with regards to Harris. Chubb is going to have to be a guy who you take a flyer on, similar to how people took a flyer on with J.K. Dobbins this past year. And then it'll be interesting to see where Elijah Mitchell goes. I think it was a tough sledding for him the first part of his career with the Niners, with the injuries, and then with Christian McCaffrey. I'd love to see him go to a situation similar to Dobbins, where he has a chance to potentially start and show his skills, because I do think he's a really talented running back.
I agree with you. I don't think the Niners can afford to lose him. I don't think the Niners can afford to have a very thin running back room. I know they have McCaffrey, obviously. I know there's Isaac Guerrero. I think that's still on his rookie contract, but
Mason is an RFA. Mason is an RFA as well, actually.
Will not. Yeah, exactly. Mason RFA. Like one of those guys have to come back. They have to have three running backs in that room, because you can't trot them out for 16 or 17 games a season anymore. We've seen that. And you can't bank on that. Elijah Mitchell, the Niners should be prioritizing and signing Elijah Mitchell and or Jordan Mason, in my opinion. And I think Rico Dowdle should stay in Dallas. Nick Chubb going to Dallas would make a lot of sense for me, because I feel like they complement each other very well. I'd be sick. But then again, like I feel like GT supposed to be drafted by Dallas. If that's the case, then I don't think Nick Chubb becomes an afterthought. The Broncos have Audric Estime still.
He looked mediocre.
He did. They definitely need more help, though, from a running back perspective.
The Broncos feels like the Broncos have drafted the same type of running back for the past 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just burly guys who don't have much movement. Javonte, Estime.
Javonte was supposed to have movement, man. Like tearing both of his ACLs in like the first year, it really didn't help at all.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with the running back position. Again, the draft class for the running backs is supposed to be one of the best in recent memory. So that'll obviously have to factor in for a lot of these teams who are going to be RB needy. But there are a lot of teams, we didn't mention the Raiders, who desperately need to move away from the Zamir White business, and even the Browns as well. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens at the running back position.
I forgot who the Raiders had as a running back for a second. Thanks for reminding me.
The favorite of Nacc and Fab. I will never forget you guys saying that guy was going to be like. You guys, even I think Nick from Partial Breakaway said he was going to be like a 1,000 yard.
Zamir White.
Yeah,
He was on the right trajectory, you know. It didn't work out that way.
nope.
Hey man, it's all I got is a fake crystal ball in front of me. I'm doing the best I can. I don't get all my calls right.
You sure don't. You sure don't.
I sure don't.
Moving on to the wide receivers. So obviously the big news of Monday afternoon was that T. Higgins was franchise tagged by the Bengals, $26.2 million. Second year in a row he gets franchise tagged. Poor guy. I was trying to find it. Fox Sports did seem like they reported it's the non-exclusive tag. So he may still negotiate with other teams.
Okay.
Mind you, the Bengals have the right to match. Hence why we have Teagan still as the number one free agent wide receiver, although technically not a free agent. Still a chance for teams to send an offer, such as the Patriots.
Yeah,
we all know how much the Patriots need number one wide receiver help. That's been kind of the rumor du jour, the rumor for the past, call it 2-3 months, of anyone going with T. Higgins. We could see the Vegas Raiders as well. So we talked about the Steelers as well. But Fab, I think this is a fair deal for Higgins. I think it puts him around the Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin. Not Chris Godwin, but Devontae Smith range.
The tag that he got, was it
23.6? Yeah, and obviously I think he's definitely worth a guy who should be getting a long-term deal. Yes. But I think this is a move that, it has to. The Bengals have to buy themselves time, because obviously they're going to give a big bag to Jamar Chase.
For sure. And I've been hearing rumors apparently that there's going to be a tag and trade as well. I think they're also entertaining some trade deals too for that. I think they just want to get sort of, I guess, this year's contract settled. Listen, I would like it if he stayed with the Bengals. That trio of an offense is just wonderful to watch. And we spoke about it last week too. Like when Jamar Chase went down, T. Higgins stepped up, like he balled out. Like he is a number one wide receiver on any other team in the NFL, almost any other team in the NFL. Right. But like you can, he's worth his weight in gold for sure from that offense and that perspective. The Bengals should do whatever they can to sign him. And I think having a contract similar to Waddle, similar to Devontae Smith in that area is fair. I think this sort of fits into that. Hopefully this gets done sooner than later. But, if he does get traded, like the Patriots are going to have the number one wide receiver to go with Drake May, something that the Patriots have never had since like Randy Moss.
Yeah, like a true wide receiver. You know what, Fab? I actually agree with you. I really think he's a number one wide receiver in many other teams.
In like 20 NFL teams, he's a number one wide receiver.
So in 5 games, in 5 games without Jamar Chase, he has 31 catches, 511 yards, and 3 TDs. So that's an average of 6 receptions a game and 102 receiving yards per game. Yeah, and 0.6 touch. Small sample size is not the biggest sample size, but he has the height, he has the kind of catch ability to be a number one guy. So I would love for him to be with the Pats. I think they definitely need to get Drake May a legitimate number one wide receiver.
100%.
Then after Higgins, not that the gap is large, but you have kind of like some injury-prone players in Chris Godwin, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, who had just that really weird year for the Bills, where
so weird,
wasn't targeted at all. He's such a pro. Like he didn't complain. He didn't say anything whatsoever.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
but still a weird year. Hollywood Brown, who came off a broken collarbone, looked like he was coming into his own, but still. Then you have DeAndre Hopkins, and then it's like the next year is like older guys, right? Like coming into their mid-30s. DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen. There's Devontae Adams there. He's at 9 because he's not currently a free agent, but there's a lot of rumors that he's either going to get traded, and if the Jets aren't able to find a trade partner, they will cut him, which would bring him right at the top, maybe even above T. Higgins. Where do you see the landscape on the wide receiver position for the free agents, Fab? Because there's a lot of wide receiver needy teams. If we look at the Cowboys. We talked about the Packers, Houston, the Chargers desperately need one, the Saints, and even the Bucks as well, depending on what happens with Chris Godwin.
Yeah, so going over that list of teams that you have mentioned, because I already had a few spots in my head for where these guys should be going. I think Chris Godwin stays with the Bucks. I think they work out a deal. I want him to stay with Tampa Bay. To be honest with you, like I think he was drafted by them. And he's been there the whole time, and he's gone through a lot of injuries and all that stuff. And I think he should stick around there too. He's probably and he's obviously gonna be on the cheap. Keenan Allen is the one that I'm most perplexed about, to be honest with you. I've heard that he might go back to the Chargers, but he didn't show a lot last year with Caleb Williams in that offense. He had a few games where he popped off, but it was very mid, to say the least, right? So I don't know what type of team will be looking for that type of service, to be honest.
Going back to Chicago would actually not be a bad idea if you think of how he plays and how Amon-Ra St. Brown played with Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
That'd actually be a really good fit.
I feel like Ben Johnson is going to attract a lot of these players as well. Right? Yeah. I feel like Keenan Allen, if he might have been on the fence before about sticking around, well, now he might be a little bit more all in because he sees how the organization is changing and what direction they're going in. Yeah. It's going to make it a lot more interesting for free agents and enticing free agents that come back around. And listen, you already had a year of chemistry with Caleb Williams. It's not as if it's nothing, so that could still build and work off of that. Sorry about that. Someone's calling me late at night over here. I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen.
I got a call from Il Perot.
Did you?
Is that you too, Il Perot?
From Amazon? No, it's my front door. My God. Where was I going? I lost my train of thought. Marquise Brown. This I find weird. So Marquise Brown, rumors to the Bills. I guess they're going to swap Marquise Brown. I'm take out Amari Cooper and put in Marquise Brown, which I like a lot for Josh Allen. I'm a big Hollywood Brown believer. Like I go back to, I know it's a very small sample size, but I go back to those 6 or 7 games he had last year with Keenan Allen. Not with Keenan Allen. With Kyler Murray for the Cardinals. When DeAndre Hopkins was injured and he had to beat the guy, and he had wide receiver 1 numbers like for those 6 games. He looked really good, and then he just got unfortunately injured last year with Kansas City before the season even started. And he had a few nice games right around the end of the season in the playoffs. I see, assuming he's fully healthy, I can see that being a really, really good addition to the Bills' offense. You have Khalil Shakur already. You have Keon Coleman who's coming in. Then you add Hollywood Brown. Listen, you have a nice trio of wide receivers over there where, it gives Josh Allen a lot more room to maneuver in. Amari Cooper is a bit of a wild card for me. I've been hearing that he also goes to the Bears to replace Keenan Allen. But Amari Cooper had a quiet season last year. I don't like it either. He had a quiet season last year, so I don't know. I don't know where he's going to end up. Wherever he ends up, I don't think it's going to be from a fantasy impact perspective. That's for sure. I think
that seems like an odd fit with Roma Dunze playing a lot of X receiver.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like it when I read it. I was like, that doesn't really make sense. Stephon Diggs is going to be interesting.
Yeah, so that's Diggs. Diggs does a lot of, so obviously the ACL. Yeah. Let's see if he's on track to even make it to training camp. But I thought he played really well. He was quiet. He wasn't causing a stir.
Yeah.
Houston will need
a back.
That's what I'm thinking. Houston will need a wide receiver anyways, right? And why not just go back there? But
that's another room where like they're injured every single year. Like Tank Dell hasn't played a full season in 2 years. Nico Collins, God love him. The guy only plays like about half a season or 2/3 of a season every single year. And he's fantastic. So what are you going to do? And then you complain that CJ Stroud, doesn't have protection. He has no one to throw it to, right? Like at one point last year, Tank Dell was his number 1 wide receiver. All of 5'8" of him. Like he needs a little bit more. I think Houston should be prioritizing signing some free agent wide receivers. I think they should bring back Stephon Diggs. I know I mentioned Hollywood Brown going to the Bills, and that would make sense. Add him to the Texans roster. That would be interesting too.
What about Dallas? We cannot think
Yeah.
that Dallas can go back again, as well as Turbin played.
Yes.
As well as I'm forgetting like a Jalen something.
I forgot his name, but that just tells you that.
But they played well towards the end of the year.
Yep.
But you have to add another player for CeeDee Lamb. They traded Amari Cooper, and then they had Michael Gallup for a bit, and now they're just kind of trotting out CeeDee Lamb on an island. I actually think Hollywood Brown would be a really interesting option. Because he could play outside. He could play a bit in the slot as well.
Yep.
He's a quiet guy. I don't think Diggs and Lamb. I don't think that's a good idea. No,
I was thinking Diggs just reunited with his cousin or his brother who plays with them over there.
Oh yeah, Trayvon Diggs. DeAndre Hopkins. Like we didn't talk about him, but that would not work at all. Like Hopkins at this stage of his career, that's just not going to work. Where he can only play like one type of position, and he's not really moving across the formation anymore.
No. I thought Patrick Mahomes was going to be able to open up DeAndre Hopkins. Wasn't the case. I realized it more when like Calvin really went off for the Titans last year on a lot of games. Like you don't see DeAndre Hopkins put up those numbers anymore at this point. Well, Calvin Ridley had quite a bit of nice games last year. He had a nice. Yes, he did. I was hating on Calvin Ridley all of last season, so I'm eating my words here.
That's a team that needs more wide receiver help. When Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has the most fantasy points at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, that's also the product of the quarterback, though.
Yeah, there's a ton of teams that need help. The only one I feel that I'm pretty confident in saying is the Chargers. I don't see a situation where they don't get Devontae Adams, whether they trade for him or if he gets cut. To me, like we mentioned that one before. That makes a ton of sense because he's a West Coast guy, and they have that need for a bona fide wide receiver next to Ladd McConkey.
Darius Slayton for the Chargers would make a ton of sense. A ton of sense.
I love Slayton.
Quentin Johnson's contract is not working. Yeah, I'm sorry. He can't. Oh man, that game that I lost where he had like 5 drop passes. My goodness, Darius Slayton, for all accounts, put up exceptional wide receiver numbers, playing in, and I'm putting it mildly here, a subpar quarterback, playing from a subpar quarterback room. So Darius Slayton in LA, I think would do very well. I think he would probably do better than his numbers that he has right now, which is like averaging around 800 yards a season, 700 yards a season. He can probably crack the century mark over there. With Ladd McConkey, I think the Giants should keep him personally because I think he's an asset on that team for a variety of reasons. But Darius Slayton to the Chargers makes a ton of sense to me. Ton of sense.
Always been an underrated player.
Yeah.
Always been a really underrated player.
And Devontae's going to go wherever Aaron Rodgers goes. So.
No, I don't think so. I really don't think that's going to be the case. So? No. Well, I mean, if it's the Giants, you really think Devontae's going to go to New York? And I think he has a family. He has like 3 kids, man. Like I feel like he wants. All I've read is that he wants to stay on the West Coast this time. You can't be tethered to Aaron Rodgers for the rest of your career when he's 40 and you're still, you're maybe just outside your prime. But Devontae still has a good 3 to 4 years left. And if you're just tethered to Rodgers, if you go, let's say he goes to the Giants, struggles the first few weeks.
Yeah,
we draft Shadur or Cam. It's over.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, it's a very good point. You're right. Yep.
So that's it for the free agent wide receivers. It's a great list of players. I think there's gonna be a ton of movement. And then lastly, we'll go quickly with the look. You see Zach Ertz there pointing. We see Zach Ertz halfway there. Type of man. That's how bad the tight end free agency class is. He doesn't even want to show himself. Fab, you've always been a big proponent. You're a big proponent of Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
Where do you see him going?
So it's confirmed the Commanders will not be taking back his services, which I'm upset about because I thought it was a very good safety blanket for Jaden Daniels, and we saw that last year too. Even from a fantasy football perspective, he was serviceable. I think that could be he can provide the similar sort of assistance to the Colts. I think Anthony Richardson definitely needs a guy that he can, mind you.
Fantastic.
He needs a guy that he can be very, very, safe with, and even with the Broncos too, with Bo Nix, right? I mean, I feel like who's his tight end for the Broncos? I can't think of him right now. It's not Cole Kmet anymore.
Troutman. Troutman.
Yeah. I think Zach Ertz still has a little bit left in the tank, and I would like to see him finish off with like a nice rookie quarterback that needs a safety blanket.
So like 120 yards in the NFC title game. He was fantastic.
Dude, he's good.
He's very good.
Yeah, like I don't know why everyone's poo-pooing on the guy. Maybe he wanted too much money. I don't know, but the Broncos would make sense to me. The Broncos would make a lot more sense probably than the Colts.
Chargers desperately need it.
Chargers too. Chargers haven't had a tight end since Antonio Gates.
Didn't you also get screwed by Will Dissly?
I did get screwed by Will Dissly. I did. Basically, I'm trying to GM the entire Chargers offense. That way it doesn't happen again next year.
They need to get out of the Will Dissly business. So I think
he's been trying to be a thing for like 4 years now in that organization, from what I've been reading. Like it's been, and they finally thought that last year was going to be the year, and he had a stretch where he had a lot of games, and then I put him in my lineup, and he puts up a goose egg. So
And I would add the Rams here too. I don't know where any of these guys are going because the tight end class is very good for the draft. Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren, Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son, Joy Taylor's nephew. So it's a really good tight end class. So who knows where any of these agents will.
Whose nephew was that?
Joy Taylor. Joy Taylor.
Who?
Joy Taylor.
Put some respect on her name. Tyler Warren, I saw him run the gauntlet. That guy was on rails. Like he didn't even deviate from that line at all. It was straight. It was like watching Ladd McConkey last year.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like that's how you know they're good. Yeah, it's straight line and it's don't lose speed. So
Zero.
So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see that the Rams have similar to the Chargers. I feel like they just haven't had a good tight end They've tried to make Higbee a thing. Gerald Everett, I think they tried to make a thing as well. Or am I confusing the fact that he played for the Chargers? Anyways, I think a lot of teams could use some tight end help. And then there's Gesicki and Juwan Johnson, who I've always been a big fan of. So we'll have to see how the tight end landscape shapes up. But going to be a very, very interesting free agency period in the coming weeks. Any last takes on free agency coming up next week, Fab?
I don't know. I'm on the roller coaster. My seatbelt's on. Whatever happens. Like I'm more excited, to be honest with you, for the new league year to start and the tampering to start, because that's when when the dominoes fall for over there. That's when you're really going to see stuff happen.
You're pretty locked into these rumors, man. You're like hearing everything.
It's my Twitter feed. My algorithm is just destroying me now. All I get is rumors. I don't get anything related to what I want to look at. all I get is I go on my Twitter and it's just Giants rumors and it's everything related to NFL. This podcast has crippled my algorithm.
So that'll do it for us this week. Big free agency preview, some combine talk as well. Please stick with us. We're going to have a ton of more content with regards to free agency. We're going to have a big free agency recap next week, probably around midweek. We'll probably even do 2 episodes actually for free agency recap, because there's just always stuff that trickles in even in the second week. Obviously, Nacc will be back next week to join us along that. And then after free agency, we're going to do our positional deep dives for the draft. We'll do QBs, running backs, wide receivers. We might even kind of, I think it's even worth it to do tight ends separately because the class is so good, and even maybe talk about some offensive linemen. So we'll hope to have maybe a few guests who are as locked in as in college football as we are into the NFL. So please stick with us. You can follow us at Bush League Huddle. No E for X, and anywhere else on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. On behalf of Fab, I am Raj, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Peace out.